All right, it's 5 o'clock. Going to call the meeting to order. Starting with roll call.
Yes. Ms. Gattuso, absent. Mr. Lee,
Here.
Mr. Martinez, absent. Mr. Munoz,
Here.
Mr. Pereira,
Here.
Ms. Smith, absent, and Ms. Moran present.
All right, we do have a quorum. On to a Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda. Any changes, Mark?
No changes.
No changes. Need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Member Munoz, seconded by Member Moran to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it's carried. Anybody here that would like to speak to tonight's agenda item? Now's the time to do that. Seeing no one come forward, we are done with public forum and moving on to new business. First interim budget report. Alejandra.
Hello,
You're
I'm
on.
sorry, I'm gonna be right behind you. That way the captures the presentation. So, I will be presenting our first interim report. The information that I'm gonna present today is as of July through October 31st that we got from the state, updates and information. But as you can see, we have other reporting periods, an audit actual, second interim, third, and our June budget presentation. So we'll focus on first interim in this presentation. There is 3 forms of certifications that we present to our county office. We have a positive certification, meaning we're able to meet our financial obligations in our multi-year projections. Our qualified certifications, we may not be able to meet one of the years, and our negative is that we are in the red already and cannot meet any of our financial obligations this year. So to summarize for our first interim, we will be certifying positive. Our district enrollment's at 10,908. That's a little decrease from last year's about 16 so far. Keep in mind, this is the date range that I'm collecting this information. CalPATS gets certified in December, so it gets updated in our second interim. Our ADA, average daily attendance, is projected at 9,698. That is last year's P2 update, and that is certified twice a year around April, and that will be updated by adopted budget. You should have an updated number on that. Our unduplicated pupil percentage has decreased to 71.54. This is low income foster, the free and reduced applications that we've been receiving, what we refer to the alternative income forms. We have seen a reduction in applications, but we've been working diligently to increase that number by second interim. Some state adopted budget updates that has happened after it was approved. Our 6.28 LCFF base grant portion was increased to 6.7, so about 0.4 increase. We've been given the allocation, just the allocation, not the money, for the learning loss emergency block grant at $17.9 million. The $6.4 million is a one-time arts, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant. Again, this is just the allocation. We haven't received any of the money yet. We have received, as of October 31st, full funding in our ELP, our expanded learning opportunities. Its total allocation is about $11.9 million. We have received about $3 million of that as of today. Our home to school transportation is now getting an additional funding. We're going to get 60% of our expenditures from transportation from the prior year as part of the calculations in our apportionments. Special education has increased to $820 per ADA, and they continue to project to have universal access meals in the upcoming years, even as we have it now. It's free meals for everybody. So what does that look like? The beginning fund balance in combined unrestricted and restricted is about $28 million. We have a lot of one-time revenue as our COVID learning loss that is accumulated from last year that is carried over to that beginning balance. Our revenue projected for this year is at 222. Our expenditures are 236, and in our ending balance at $14 million. That $14 million It's an add of total of this combination, oops. The restricted portion of the 14 million is at $5 million. The required reserve is at $7 million. So many of you could wonder, why did it increase from last year? We have a lot of one-time money, meaning we have to have more money in our reserves, leaving about close to $1.8 million. Very low payroll reserves, so you guys are aware that our monthly payroll for our payments is about $7 million. Payments we make a month closer to $2 to $3 million, so it's a very low reserve level at this point.
So the 14 million, basically, if we had to spend any of it, we only have 1.8 million to spend.
Correct, because we can't spend the $7 million right
We
now.
can't spend the 7 on the restricted, we can't
We
spend
can't touch
except
it.
on restricted
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
So we really don't have a lot of money in
It's
reserves.
sitting in
in
reserves,
extra reserves,
yes.
okay, because that's, 1.8 is nuts.
And I'll
No.
share how our revenue has changed from adopted to now based on the unduplicated percentage decreasing. So I'll show you what that looks like in the revenue section.
But the other part that's concerning to me is, of course, we started with 28 million, but our expenditures were, you know,
They're 236 because we included all the carryover that we had that we're gonna be expensing it.
right, but the revenue's only 222.
Yes, yes.
That's called deficit spending.
Correct, you're correct, and it has to do a lot with the carryover one time from last year's, and it's still until we finally spend it down, it gives a realistic number of what our normal, and there's no normal, the past 2 to 3 years, it has drastically changed for all this one-time money that we've been receiving from the state.
Alejandro, I got a question.
Yeah, of course.
The monthly payroll you said is how much per month?
Last one I signed is 7.2 million
Per month.
per month.
So if you go back to the slide, so our required reserve is $7 million.
Correct.
So we have enough money for 1 month's worth of.
If we had to touch it, yes, but then we'll have to give an explanation to the county why don't we have the 3% that is required by the state, and that's gonna be an issue. Because we must have that available.
That's a state requirement, the
State
required
requirement.
reserve is a state requirement.
Yeah.
It's not any, county requirement or our
So the
requirement.
county
It's a
won't
state
approve
requirement.
it because you need to have some money there for reserves.
Right.
So let's separate our restricted and unrestricted expenditures. Here as a visual of our unrestricted expenditures. About $98 million of that is our salaries and benefits. The rest of the components is our books and supplies and services. You could see that right now 75% of our budget is the salaries and benefits. I know the one-time monies have been helping a lot to sustain some of the positions that we have right now. So that has changed from year to year, and I noticed that, but it has to do a lot with that one-time money we were receiving.
At one time, wasn't our salary and benefits at 80%?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right, yes.
So how did we go down to 75? We did, because of all the
ESSER
one-time
funds,
money?
all the ESSER funds.
The ESSER funds?
Yeah.
Right.
Changes that.
Yeah, but this is gonna change again, once all the money goes away,
It's
we'll
gonna
be
go
back
back.
to 80%.
General fund's gonna take over some of the expenditures that. Okay, so I wanna go over the comparison of what I provided to you guys in September and what's going on now and how has it changed. And this is straight from our calculation from the apportionments we're given from the state, how we're funded. So we're funded our base grant, as you can see here. When I presented to you the updated budget in September, we're at $93 million. First interim, we're at $105 million. And you can see an increase about $11 million from year to year. And then our grade span adjustment and supplemental concentration and the additional add-ons. So you can see our total increase in revenue is $10 million. There is a decrease in our supplemental concentration, and I'll show you a breakdown of what that looks like in the following slide. It has to do a lot with the alternative income forms and free and reduced applications that we have not received. And again, we're working very hard to increase that. Calls, sites are getting extra subs to do the call-in, so we could at least get back to where we were before. That's the goal.
Are people not filling them out because they get it for free?
They're already getting free.
They get it free. Before, you had to turn it in to get free
Now they're
lunch.
just
Now it's
automatically.
automatically free, so they're saying,
Yeah.
I
Why
need
do I
to
have
fill
to
this
fill it
out
out?
because I'm getting it
Right.
anyway.
And it's giving that parents are saying, well, why? So that one-on-one call is explaining the funding, and then that's like, okay, that makes sense. So many of them, we do get them after we explain the reasoning to it. It's just, it takes time to call, over like 11,000 calls that we have to do. Here, I'm gonna break down the differences in revenue and what that COLA, the additional add-on, and components add up to be. So if you get the COLA that we have is 6.5%, 6.56, we also have an additional TK funding and LCFF increase. It's a proposed boost to the LCFF base grant to 6.7, so it's a 0.42 increase, adding up to 13.26. So what does that 13.26 look like? What does that mean? What is the breakdown? Where does that money go to? So previously I presented to you in our updated in September that it was 12.84 because of that 0.42 difference. What we're getting and money, and new money. This is new money. You can see we got 7.9 here. For the LCFF expansion, 3.5. The grade span, we have about 400,000 in supplemental and concentration. You have 1.7 and 1.2. Keep in mind the purple LCAP has to be spent as part of the LCAP plan, and it has to be used for improved and increased services for students. It can't just be used just for anything. It has its purpose. The base grant is normally what people review as additional money in COLA. That's how they review it, the one in blue. But what's going on now? So the total of 3.26.
Could you go back for a second? The LCF TK expansion, is that ongoing money?
Yes, it is.
So is it gonna be rolled into the base grant, or is it gonna be?
It's rolled already in part of the base grant.
So, I mean, next year, when they do the budget next year, is it gonna be part of the base grant, or is it actually gonna say LCSF TK expansion?
It's going to be just part of the base grant next year, because they're saying we're giving you money to expand for TK. Now it's your job to be able to allocate the portions for it. So if our new TK building costs about 18 million and we're getting a grant for 7 million, we have to make up the rest how? It's like we're
And
giving.
that's the one thing is we are planning, and it's gonna cost 17 million. So if we get the 2.2, so we'll be like behind. So we have to do like a bridge loan to make sure that building gets done, and then we pay ourselves back in 5 or 6 years. Because if we don't get the building done, then there is a fine. There's a hefty fine.
That's why I gave it to you for that purpose.
And we get the money that we pay ourselves back from where?
From this, because it's
From
part of
this.
the base grant.
That
From the base
2.2,
grant.
So they give
yeah.
us
So
additional portion for the TK. So when they calculate when we break down what we are allocated, they do it by grades. So for TK to 3, this is how much you're getting and help you to the expansion.
Right.
Or then you have your 4 to 5, 6, 7, and 8. All the grades are separated. So I took the portion that is TK only to help pay for that for our expansion. And a lot of our funding is tied to the TK that we have to meet that requirement. We need this building and we need money for it, and we don't have enough to pay for it. So they're saying you need to plan diligently to make sure you leave enough money for that building. And it eventually will pay ourselves back, like how Amir said, as
And our TK center we're trying to build is bare minimum. It's not going to be fancy. It won't be anything state of the art. Just bare minimum is going to cost us 17 million.
Yeah, it's expensive. So for first interim now, currently, our base grant's at $9 million. That increase in the 0.42, you could see that why there's such an increase in our blue section. Our TK expansion went down, and supplemental and concentration went drastically down. So you could see there's a $4 million difference. A lot of it is because of the unduplicated count. Those applications are very important to us. So we're working very hard to at least go back to that by second interim.
So I think we're collecting the information every day.
Mhm.
Every day we have subs all over the site is working on it. So hopefully we can improve that number.
So for first interim, I have to present our multi-year projection. It contains right now flat enrollment because I haven't seen such an increase or such a decrease. So I'm just going to be conservative. Flat enrollment. Our ADA is flat as well. Our MYP includes school services projected cost of living. The unduplicated pupil count percentage is projected to decrease as low as 61% if we don't get those applications in by second interim. Our MYP includes the step and columns, SERS and PERS, health and welfare increase it, and also includes our long-term obligation of COP payment. The following is a visual of multi-year projections. As you can see, our first year, we have a COLA of 6.56. We contribute to restricted programs such as special services, our required maintenance accounts that we have to sustain, and other special restricted accounts. We do have a deficit spending here at and this is unrestricted of 6.1 million. Keep in mind it contains a lot of one-time from last year. That is the reason why it's a deficit spending, because we're using up our beginning fund balances, going back to that ending fund balance of $9 million for the unrestricted portion only. We have that $7 million that we have to keep in our reserves, and then, like I mentioned, the 1.8. We have about a 6% reserve level for 23-24. You notice our contribution went down. We have some of our unrestricted resources moved into restricted, like the LBTA fund, the site clearing fund. We are moving them to restricted resources because we can't spend that on anything. It has to be spent for the LBTA conferences. The other one, the clearing has to be spent for student purposes, so we actually put it where it's supposed to be going now. Our ending fund balance is projected at $10.8 million. You see that we're balancing back out here because we're spending a lot of the one-time money, and that's just projections, as I say. Our reserve of 3% is at $5.7 million. The reason it's down because we're spending a lot of the one-time money, which we're not required to keep as much, leaving the payroll reserves at $5 million for this year. 24-25 projected COLA for school services at 4.02. Our deficit spending is at $1 million, and it has to do, again, back to the unduplicated pupil percentage, those alternative income forms. If we could decrease that number, this could look different by second interim. So about 8 to 7% reserve levels projected in the years out.
So that's good, because we're under the required 10%.
Yes,
So that's a good thing.
we're sustaining that under
That's
10%.
good. Even though it's always nice to have a few extra bucks in the bank. What did I see? That was a question. I'm sorry, there was. I
It's
had a
okay,
second-
I'll
I had a
come to
second
you.
question, I can't remember what it was now.
While you're waiting,
Go ahead.
so tell me how you know the numbers for the COLA keep going down in the coming years. How do you project them down and not project them up?
Because the school services provides this information.
So are those hard numbers?
And that's what they have, yes.
School Services, Gene, is one of the premier companies, consulting company. They work very closely with the state. So their projection are pretty much, at par with what states.
So they have a track record of,
Yeah.
if they say it's gonna be that number, that's what it's
Yes,
gonna be.
they are
Very
pretty good,
close.
yeah.
Very
They work very closely with the state, because when state have issues, then they go talk to school service, hey, we have issues, how can you help us, give us some suggestions.
So what we're seeing right now at the state level of the governor saying that things don't look really good, and we could be taking some of that money back that we were gonna give you, that's why the numbers are going
Yeah,
down.
and I think,
That will be updated in second
Yeah.
interim.
And I think one of the things is when we go to the worst that governor usually do is defer. Say, you know what, I'm not paying you the revenue now, I'm gonna pay you after 8 months. For 8 months, you're on your own. That's the worst that can happen.
So in our terms, it's a swag. You know what swag is? Well, a wag is a wild ass guess. And a swag is a scientific wild ass guess.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's a swag.
swag, okay.
The other comment I was going to make is, these numbers look good for all the 3 years, but if there is a salary increase, that's
It's not
gonna-
part of my
that,
calculation.
no, I know, that's going to change
Yes.
all those numbers and our ending balances.
Correct, that is not a computed part of it. Again, one of their goals and focus, I have had my staff work overtime is getting those applications in, because that's $4 million that we need back to our books, that we had it before. We need to get back to those applications, because that's gonna help us a lot by second interim.
Because isn't 1% still $1 million?
Close to a million.
So, and I just throw a number, if you give them a 5% raise, that's $5 million off that ending fund balance.
Correct, but keep in mind, some of the salaries, some of our employees are restricted.
Restricted, right.
So, those are, it's a portion of both,
Right.
components of both. So it's, when I calculate those, I use both combinations, because of our employees are combination of both unrestricted and restricted. So final synopsis of our first interim. Again, our period of reporting is through October 31st. I know there's been a lot of news, a lot of updates about the state recently, and I will keep you guys informed after our governor's budget in January 18th with updates of what's going on. I'm working, checking their website. School Services has a website. I'll share the link. Department of Finance too is sharing information, and we're just checking to just be prepared for what's coming. Right now, LBUSD is able to meet their financial obligations with the support of the one-time funds, federal funds, and the increase in COLA. We're continuing to modify operations with COVID because we still see cases here and there. Enrollment continues to be volatile since the return in person. The district has not fully recovered back to its enrollment from before COVID. ADA continues to be volatile as well. Pension contribution, health benefits continue to increase. Special education and transportation costs continue to increase. The district again has taken action to collect more alternative forms to ensure we can increase our funding by second interim. That's our goal. LBUSD is aware that the state is projecting a decrease in current year funding, but we'll wait to adjust appropriately after the governor's budget. So we've shared articles and information, what's going on, and we know what we prepared today can change drastically because if they take that money, it's going to look very different by second interim.
Well, right now they're projecting what, 4 billion
Yes.
deficit, you know. So this year they're saying they're going to use the rainy day fund to kind of make up the difference, but they don't know what they're going to do next year.
They also mentioned that they want the district to make up the difference of inflation on our own because they're trying to keep up with the deficit they're going through. So it's a very unknown period. I mean, like Amir said, it looks like it could be deferrals, and meaning they're not going to give us our apportionment when they're supposed to, which means we need to have more money in the bank to pay our payroll. We need cash flow at this time. That's what we need. So it can change by January 18th. I'll see a better picture.
Wow.
Questions?
You answered mine as we went along.
Awesome. No, that's great.
Anybody else?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Alejandro, thank you. All right, so without any questions, we need to approve the interim report as presented. So I need a motion.
I'll go ahead and make that motion. We approve.
Second?
Got a motion by member Munoz, seconded by member Moran, to approve the interim report and certify the district can meet its financial obligations for the current year and the 2 subsequent years. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We are now going to go into closed session.
Is Peter?
Yeah, that's why.
Let me go.
Unlock the door.
Oh,
Do you have your key, Amir?
Huh?
Do you have the key that you can lock that door?
No, I don't know. I mean,
It is locked, it's unlocked right now.